Hello and welcome to tonight's edition of Equine Voices. My name is Ronnie and I am sorry, I'm just checking something. Are we live? It says we're live. Okay, I hope we're live. Well, it says we're live on mine. I just hope we're live on the pages that we should be. Sorry about that. Good evening. My name's Ronnie. Welcome to Equine Voices. We always have technical problems. So I'm hoping that we're live where we should be. So if somebody can let me know that they can see this on Facebook and YouTube, that would be really, really great. So I am so pleased to have Thomas back. Now, we tried to do this interview in summer when he was in Europe, but he was getting eaten alive by mosquitoes and we had a few technical problems then. I hope this is not deja vu. Anyway, I shall bring Thomas in and he can introduce himself. So he's Dr. Tomas Teskey and his website is Insight to Equus. He's a veterinary medicine. He's a vet of medicine from Colorado State and he specializes in equine podiatry since 2001. But I'll let Thomas come in and introduce himself. So without further ado, here he is. Hi, Thomas.
Hey,
How are
Ronnie.
you?
Hey, doing well.
I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but I'm just I'm not sure if we're live on. Oh, actually, we've got a viewer, so it's flashing up that there was a technical error, and I don't know what it is. So I'm just going to carry on. So if anybody's watching, if they can let me know whether this is live on Facebook and YouTube, I'd be much appreciated because Thomas is here to talk about his work and his life experiences. So sorry, Thomas, off you go.
No worries. So, where to begin since I have been given full reins to tell you what I would like to tell you? It's, well, first of all, in the moment, I drove up to a high spot so I can get a good signal because I live pretty much in the center of the desert in Arizona, in central Arizona. So I had to go up and find a good signal so I can do the podcast with you and this talk, and I can look out and see where my horses might be. They might appear, they might not. It's kind of interesting to be up here on the landscape doing this instead of in the house or in the library or whatever. So, yeah, and I was thinking about that recently. It's been 28 years since I graduated from Colorado State University, and when I finished up school, I went and came back to Arizona and I practiced for 10 years on basically anything and everything. I was just hoping somebody would call me so I could make some money. And then after about 5 to 10 years, I was really focusing more on the equine part of the whole practice and finding that to be my calling. So what else about me? I would say that most importantly, I have a personality and a drive and or a wherewithal to basically call it out the way I see it. I try to be as diplomatic as I can be with people and with colleagues, and I think I'm getting better at that. But I would say that I don't like to beat around the bush a whole lot. I don't like to hem and haw around what I've learned, and my calling has been more and more focused lately. What it seems to me is focusing my interests, my passion, what I'm really interested in, and creating a calling around a voice for the horses. What would that sound like? What would they say? What do they need? We humans are the ones that are bringing horses into our orbit, right? We know they were a feral and still are wild and feral examples on the planet of equus, horses and donkeys and zebras, but the domestic horse is basically 100% dependent on what we can provide for them. And so that translates to 100% responsibility for us to know enough to provide what they need. Well, what determines what they need? What do you have to know? You have to know something about their nature. Where did they come from? Why are they shaped that way? Why do they do that? Why do they move like that? Why do they behave like that? So the more you study, the more, and I'm talking about studying the horse. I'm not talking about studying farriery or saddle fit or training or bridling uh, or uh, or driving horses. Nothing like that. I'm talking about studying what the horse is at their foundation, just naked horseness. What is that? What does that tell you about how they came to be shaped the way they're shaped, and what can we do with our domestic horses in captivity? And even mine, I'm here on the ranch in central Arizona on 5,000 acres. Uh, that's still confinement. And I recognize that absolutely as confinement because why? They can't migrate. There's a mountain range over here. There's a mountain range back over this way, but they can't migrate there. And I guarantee you they would. They've tried a couple times when somebody left the gate open, for example, and they end up miles away. But even large spaces that we have for our horses, we have to develop a sense of knowingness and compassion and relate. It's about relating to what they need to not just get by but thrive. That's what we want. Why do we want them to thrive? Because look at that. I mean, that's what draws you to Equus. What makes you so interested? What are you curious about? What is that energy? What is that spirit, that free expression that they have? And we're very attracted to that. And we want to get close to that. We want to commingle with that, even co-create with that. And it's exciting, it's alluring, it's attractive. And the sad irony is that we place horses into situations where that becomes not only handicapped, but completely disabled. So once you're aware of what happens, you would be like, well, what can I do to bring that back, nurture that? What can I do to nurture that freedom of expression and fire and energy that I'm so attracted to in Equus, right? So I finally wrote a book about it, and it has little bits of everything, some science, some stories, some statistics on some of my work with dentistry and hoof care, and a little bit of something for everybody. And it's called Insight to Equus. And since you're here with me and we have this gathering, I'll let you in on a little bit of a secret about the title of Insight to Equus. And I allude to it basically on the title page of my book. And I break up the word insight to two words: in sight, or within sight. So if I have you in my sight, that means I see you. If I have a landscape or a herd of animals or an audience of people within my sight, that means I have you right here within my awareness, within my bubble of what we're doing moment to moment. And when horses have each other and other humans that they feel comfortable with in their sight, you will start to orbit together, you will start to feel together, you will start to reflect things back and forth to each other, just like you do in conversation with your children or your spouse or your friends or your own horse, perhaps. You know what I'm talking about when you're out there and talking to your horse. And it's funny, a lot of times I'm working on a horse that I've been called to see, and I'll be in a bit of a conversation with them, and I'll be asking them questions and making little comments, and sometimes I'll be in a juvenile voice or a different kind of voice or just a regular talking voice. And so many times the people around or the client will be like, "What was that? What did you say?" And it'll bounce me out of my space with the horse, and I'll have to tell them, "Oh, I was just talking to the horse. We were just talking about this foot here," or, "Oh, we were just talking about what they ate this morning." Or so it's been really fun to try to do both things at the same time. Like, when I get with a horse or a couple of horses and I'm working with them, and of course the owner is there and wanting to learn, and I'm wanting to show them, but I'm also talking to the horse at the same time. You really have to see it to appreciate it. And I do plan to try to get some good help with some videos at some point to show what that looks like, because it's so different from having a horse in a pair of stocks or in a clinic in a sterile environment, with them heavily sedated or uh, tied up tight or confined extra tight. Basically, my approach has been, I was going to say quite different, but it's worlds different how I like to be around people and their horses, with space, having their friends around, maybe having something to get their mouth on, nibble on now and then, space to move if they feel like they need to move. And so just in that last few seconds, I gave you some of the main ingredients about what I've learned feeds the nature of the horse. What do they need? What are they hardwired for? Their friends, their herd. What is the herd? What is the collective? It's collective consciousness. And sometimes we can get a sense of this. Other times we get so in pain or so caught up with what's happening in life that we lose touch with that. And that's probably why we like to find a friend to talk to, or we like to go out with our animals or take the dog for a walk, or just go out and sit with the horses to regain some of that stream of herd belonging, herd consciousness. Imagine a space where you can do no wrong, where we've got you. We have you in sight. You're part of the herd, and you're within sight, and it's okay. I mean, that's powerful, and it really speaks to what we want. People who are really interested in helping equus become more of develop a partnership with humans on this planet, step up. This is me ringing the bell, and I hope that once we ring the bell, we can't unring it, because what's happening is important, and it's so important for us as people to latch onto this. I can't help the number of horses I would love to help unless I can reach you, unless I can speak to your heart and mind to take this and go and further advance this set of ideas that speaks to nurturing the nature of the horse, their friends, the herd. What else do they need? They need a grass-based nutrition. Why? Because that's what they evolved on. You might not be amazed to learn that horses cannot digest grass. Like, what do you mean by that? Well, what I mean by that is inside their gut are trillions of microorganisms that are in place in a symbiotic relationship and have been there for millions and millions of years to help horses digest forage, grass, tree leaves, brush, bark, minerals, clay, whatever they could get their mouth on, right? Talk about an oral creature. Horses get their mouths on everything, and so they're feeding the microflora in them. So when I say grass-based or forage-based nutrition, that's what I mean by that. So that's second. We had the herd, we got grass-based nutrition, space. Look at the athletic shape of this animal. I mean, if you're a paleontologist and you dug up a skeleton of a horse, or even one part, even one cannon bone was all you could find, I guarantee you, because I've talked to them, and I know some of them, they talk about this. These structures speak speed on landscape. Everything about this length of this bone, this articulation, the joint, the range of motion speaks to moving at high rates of speed in open spaces. How would they know that? I mean, isn't that kind of a leap that doesn't seem like it would be possible? It absolutely is possible. They absolutely are correct. And we know that because we can observe horses on the landscape. We know what they're capable of, going 40 miles per hour, or going straight up in the air, or twisting and turning and rearing up with each other. And so what kind of spaces do we provide for that? What would you think would be minimum space requirements for not just one horse, right? Because now we're adding to the herd. So a herd is 2 or more. The more, the better. Don't ever ask me if you should get another horse, because I'll say, oh yeah, you need to get a bunch more. I like 4. 4 members in a herd is getting to be much better than 2 or 3. 1 is inappropriate. Okay, let's call it out. Here's the personality coming out for you. Maybe you should hear the words out of a guy with letters after his name, Doctor of Veterinary Medicine. It's like, okay, that's fine, but as soon as I can let you know that I'm also human, the better. And the fact is that, yeah, I spent a lot of money and a lot of time, becoming a veterinarian and practicing, and now we're 28 years into it. And so here's what it sounds like. Inappropriate to keep a horse by themselves. And now you know why, because they're hardwired. That if you measured stress hormones and other markers in horses that are kept by themselves, that biochemistry and those blood tests would be screaming at you, screaming stress. Before I get off on a tangent there, let's get back to the list, because we have the herd, we have grass-based nutrition, we have space, and what else might you think would be important for nurturing the nature of the horse in domestication? Now, see, now we have them in our backyards, on our track systems, on our farm areas. What do they need? Well, they need hoof care and dental care. We need to intervene. Why? Because lack of space, lack of migration, lack of having a baby every year, lack of having stallions around. Now, some places in the world do, but I was in the UK again for the second time recently with Amy up there in Nottinghamshire, and we're getting together and doing clinics. And so maybe I get to see you if you're a UK person online or see this in the future. Fact is, you have limited space, and you have a lot of calories on the ground. So you have no problem providing grass forage, but without the movement and creating the demand to use that forage, you end up in trouble. So we have lack of movement, which, how does that show up in their feet? They grow too long. You know that your fingernails and horses' hooves grow too long if you're not out there digging in the dirt or breaking them off or wearing them. We call that exfoliation. So I have horses here that are self-trimming. I have horses I can show you that I have not touched a tool to their feet in 15 to 18 years now. Very cool. Beautiful. I mean, just the picture of health, and just flying by, and they just say, see ya, I don't have time to talk today. I'm just, sometimes they do want to talk, but other times they're like, no, I'm very busy. He didn't get on the schedule fast enough. Feels like sometimes. Teeth, dental care. Why? Lack of grazing. That green stuff that's growing in the UK that you feed the horses that they bite off and eat, that's cream. That's soft. That's so soft. I can show you some coarse grass or some cactus or some sticker bushes on the desert here. The high desert is actually the places on the planet that horses probably spent huge amounts of time evolving on. Not that they couldn't have migrated through parts of the UK or from north to south, but they couldn't have stayed there. Why? Why can't horses during their evolution just stay on the greenest place they find? Predators. Where's the predators? Sometimes I feel like I'm a predator sometimes when I see horses standing around too much. They're like, go, let's go. Move, guys, let's go. We got to go. I'll eat you up, with a smile on my face. But, so I want you to get aware of why it's important to keep them moving, address their feet. And how would you address their feet? You would want to trim their feet in a way that is complementary to their nature. How would they have done it themselves had they had the chance? What would their teeth look like if they had the chance to graze on a variety of coarse forages and brush and sagebrush and tree bark and mineral? And one of the limiting factors for lifespan here in the desert is teeth wear. You won't see that in the UK hardly ever, but I see it here a lot. Horses that will wear their teeth out, and you might be aware that horses have reserve tooth mass up inside their skull. They're not like our teeth that come in and stop. Horses can keep erupting their teeth about 1/8 of an inch per year up until they're 20, 25 years old. And so you can use files to adjust their teeth so that they meet in the middle, so that the angles are correct. And most importantly, what you'll find out in the book when you get it, is that with lack of grazing, their front teeth, the incisors, become too long. And what does that do? It forces their back teeth apart. So how frustrating would that be in a domestic situation? Your front teeth getting so long that you can't get your grinding teeth together very well. Another source of stress, right? So where's my herd? Where's my grass-based nutrition? Where's the space for me to run? How come my teeth are in my way and too long? Why do my feet hurt because they're too long? So paying attention to these things, you win. Don't get into this is my diplomatic encouragement for you. Don't get into a micromanaging situation if you can help it. If you need to fall apart, then call Ronnie, call me, call somebody who knows, because, you know, we can pace with that. You need your herd too when you're going through your trials and tribulations, getting this all figured out. But the take-home point is, don't micromanage with every tiny little thing. Pay attention to the big things that you need: space, nutrition, hoof care, dental care, space to run, friends. Got to have the herd. Got to. I can give you dozens of case studies where it wasn't until somebody got that sick horse or that foundering horse or that metabolic crisis horse a friend or two, when they plateaued out of their illness and finally could get better, could finally heal. Why? Because I can't heal horses. I know a lot of stuff, but I cannot heal horses. What can I do? I can encourage people to provide what horses need to heal. Big, big difference. There's that responsibility part again. Here's that part where you have to have that gentle kick in the butt, that empowerment to provide what they need to maintain health and or heal. So that's a pretty big nutshell of where I'm at now with my calling, my passion, my interest in providing the best of the best information that I can to people to be successful, to not micromanage. And why does it matter? Let's kind of circle right back around just for a couple minutes and talk about why it matters. Because we're attached, because we're learning what it's like to really love animals, love ourselves enough to make this happen, right? This is where it's at. This is why it matters. You know, you can get me started on more and more stories about the little kids that come up to me when their pony is sick, with all of their ideas about what that little pony needs to survive the illness. And I'm just heart-wrenching stories about that I could tell you about how I showed up too late. They were colicked. They were foundered beyond my ability to save them at the time. They were diabetic. They were just in a metabolic state that was so far down the drain that it was going to be very difficult to get them back out, because now they can't move. Now they're uncomfortable. Now they're toxic. You know, that's why it matters. You got to be preventing that sort of despair and going down the drain. And so when I see subtle signs of it happening, I'm like ringing that bell. Hey, you see the crest on this neck? You see these fat pockets, this trend towards obesity? You see this lameness? How about these teeth? You see how they're crooked here or too long here? What about that toe length there? Why is that allowed to be like that? I mean, that's affecting your foundation. You're getting bone remodeling. You know, the coffin bones only last so long, hopefully 30 to 40 years. But with inadequate or ignorant care, ignorant just means you didn't know, right? You can't accomplish this if you don't know. I would never blame you for doing something unless you knew the difference. So this is about sharing the difference, training people's eyes. So when you get on my Facebook page or you look at my book, it's all about eye training. Here's this one and here's this one. Can you see it? Okay, let's get the ruler out. Let's get the arrows going so I can show you this right here. See that? And you won't unsee it. You can't unring the bell and you can't unsee it, I hope. Why else? Did you know that people in domestic violence situations have very poor ability to relate to animals? I mean, it's like a huge red flag. Just very, very common. So from a young age all the way up through adolescence and into adulthood, if you're not in a situation, or if you were modeled by other adults in situations to mistreat or abuse, or just be with animals in a way that was highly master slave type, kind of opposite of partnership. Okay. So I grew up on these Western ranches. I've worn the cowboy hat a lot. I can very much speak that language, which is good, because now I can communicate with cowboys, which I do all the time. It's pretty fun, and I can meet people where they are, and so. But I also imagine where we're headed with this, and with my young children right now, age 6, 4, and 2, 3-year-olds, they're not going to know what that's like. Very cool. Very cool that would pretty much be off their radar. Now it's not, because they watch me fix horses constantly. I mean, it's so entertaining to hear the 4-year-old, point to a horse's foot with a shoe on it or something strange about it, and she'll say, "It's not right. That's not right." And they're just beautiful honesty around it. So you could very well guess that I'm not in favor of shoeing horses or using bits in horses' mouths. And it's the same song, second verse. It disrespects the nature of the horse. What are they capable of? What are they capable of with their reflexes and their body parts and their nerve sensations intact? So whenever you interfere with what you think you need to do to accomplish a certain thing, I have another idea, or maybe a few ideas for you. And if I can get my toenail in the door with you, or if you can ask a question, that's all I need. I'm not going to come down your street with a sign saying, "No, I'm not doing that anymore." If you have a question, or you're having an issue and you need some help and can ask a question or make an inquiry, then we'll go. Then I'll come. Then I'll get in the door with you, and we'll go from there. But the magic of getting people to hook up a little bit with this is to at least give them a sense of why it matters, why it's important. And I can point to their own animals every time. Why it's important, because Blackjack over here has not been sound going on 4 or 5 years now. Or Susie horse over here has had this metabolic problem going on for 6, 7, 8 years now. And you've tried everything, right? Except you haven't tried extra space and having the herd and having the grass-based nutrition and working through the minerals and the proper dental care and hoof care. And so pretty critical to reach these people from where they're at and what they have in front of them. That's what I mean by meeting people where they're at. So I think with that, I feel pretty good about if somebody has any questions, or maybe Ronnie, if that sparks any questions in your mind about what we're doing here and where we're going with all this, because that's what I'd like to do, is just go from there.
Oh, I've got lots of questions. Before I say that, I just want to say I'm not sure if this has gone onto the Facebook page. So I've just shared the link to my YouTube channel. There are some people watching. So for the people that are watching, if you're able to share my YouTube channel, which is Equine Voices UK at YouTube, and you can share it to your pages so people can watch this live, because I've got a feeling for some reason, without looking into it and without stopping this, and which I don't want to do, because that was a lovely conversation. So regardless of whatever, we can put this out. We'll be putting this out in audio. As you was talking about, I can't remember which way it was, the horses were saying, give an example. So a horse's strength is immense, and even from a Shetland, a tiny horse, if they wanted to drag you down the field, down the road, they would do. If they wanted to kill you, they could do. Literally, they have so much strength in them, and the fact that they don't, the majority of the time, until they get to a point where they need to be heard big time because they're not being listened to, they put up with quite a lot, and they try to help us. They try to show us in their way. Now, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand a feel of somebody, and it's the same for human to human. So if we did some of the things that we do with horses to another human being, they'd either walk out the door or would get a buff in the face, because it's not acceptable. But yet we think that is for an animal. Now, I could go a lot deep into this because of what they give me, the information they share with me. But on a simple level, it's about having respect for a fellow soul, a fellow energetic being sharing this planet with us, and they are doing their best to live their life the way they should be, and we should be doing the same with us. And they are so good at showing us in lots of different ways that we're not listening to our own guidance, our own knowing that what's right and what's wrong. And by that, I don't mean like you're doing that wrong and you're doing that right. They're trying to show us, look, there's another way. There's another way that you can see me. There's another way that you can work with me. There's another way that I can do as you ask if you just listen to what I need, my requirements. So I think that goes with what you just said, Thomas, but in a slightly different way. Something else came back to me earlier, and I'm trying to recall it. Does that make sense to what I've just said to you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the way that you presented and put that, the fact that something else about the nature of the horses is how they show up. Some people talk about them being a prey animal, for example, or certain behaviorists can talk about them being more of a reactive type of animal instead of a predatory or whatever. But it feels like what you are speaking to and what I would appreciate about that is, wouldn't they be just about the perfect entity, the perfect set of souls on the planet to help us with that perspective? Because we can, and we have dominated them for 5,000 years or so. They were the motor of the day. Horsepower, absolutely they are. Not every individual, but the vast majority of them can be enslaved, if I can use a term, or put upon, or used beyond a level that they would have been in partnership or chosen to be involved with. I think that's pretty self-evident. So if we can create a space to be with that, because I'm not somebody who's going to tell you don't ride your horse or don't do this or don't do that. What I would like is, where's the invitation? Where do you circle up with your horses and have a discussion? Because literally, again, it's a discussion I have with my horses when I go out there to try to catch one of them to go move some cows. Because we still have cows here in central Arizona that we're managing. So it's pretty funny if you had a hidden camera on me anymore, you'd think that's not a cowboy, or he's the cowboy that never really was. But in fact, I can tell you that, yeah, evolving within our lifetime, and what it sounds like you're saying is they're a perfect herd of animals to help us attain that perspective of how do you want to proceed? How do you want to go from here? Because people do get hurt. People do have their hearts and minds just broken over horses, right? It's just so attached to them. So that's kind of what it sounds like. What you're saying is they would be in the perfect position to help us with that.
Absolutely. And what they've just given me now is the adaptability. They are not afraid, and they are not closed to adaptability. And their role is not to. So in different places, they have a different role. And the wild horses that run free, that is where they originated from. But they understand that in this time, that is not always the case. And each horse is individual. As long as their needs are met, that they have adequate, the nutrition that they need, the feed that they need, that they have shelter if needed, that they get to go out, and they have companionship. Companionship, they're saying, can be from the humans, but they need to be in a place where they appreciate and are open to that. So it's about spending time with them. The biggest thing that I say to my clients is, if you have a horse and you see your horse 3 times a day, and you go to feed your horse, you go to groom them, you go to do the stable or the shelter, that is not the same as just being in their presence with no intention to do anything apart from just being there. And the best thing is just to sit with them and just to watch them, but gently, not intensely, but just watch them gently and just feel what they're sending out to you. You can communicate with an animal. You do not have to be right next to them. They can be in another field, and they don't have to be looking at you, but they are still communicating, as you know, with another horse. They're all eating the grass or whatever they're eating. They've all got their heads down, and then one horse may flick its ear in a certain way and slightly raise its head, and the other ones, it doesn't matter where they are, they will do the same. If a horse raises its head high, it'll be a few seconds and all the others will do exactly the same. It's not just a visual thing. They are in tune with each other. Mm-hmm. And we as humans have that ability, but with all the noise and the chatter and external influences and distractions, we've forgotten how to do that. When we're with an animal or when we go for a walk in nature, that comes back to us, and it's that peace and that just grounding is the basis of everything, and that's where you start. Communication isn't always about what you hear too. It's the like the quiet area before a storm. When there's a storm coming, you will hear the birds, and there'll be lots of nature noises, and then it will go quiet. Or the wind might just settle down. It might be really windy, and the wind settles down. You know something's on its way, and the animals know it's something on its way. Mm-hmm. And it's that quiet. There's so much communication going in that stillness, that it's not something you can always put into words, but you can feel it. And it's that has an influence on the physical being of a human and the physical being of an animal, and horses, as we're talking about. Does that make sense?
Yeah, very much so. So they would help us get back in touch with some of those abilities that arguably we have those abilities also, and that would seem to be timely again in so many ways to feel into that, and instead of ultimate distractions everywhere that we run into. So.
But it's not about going back in time and wishing we were in the Stone Age, or when, you know, when the
No.
horses were all wild, because we're not there. We're here. We're evolving, and they
Right.
are too. We're all
Right.
evolving, both physically and energetically. So what we have to try and find is a mutual ground where we can meet and give and receive from each other, whatever that is, our needs met. Because as
Yep.
a human, that's what we're always asking. I want my needs met. I
Right.
want. And an animal is saying exactly the same. But you don't recognize what my needs are. So how can you recognize what your true needs are?
Right.
So
Yeah. What would the list? We could make a list for what
yeah,
is in the nature of the humans to need to thrive as well. And as the veterinarian, I can give you some really good tips, like I did, on what they would need to show up in that way to help us out, to continue to help us out, but in a partnership, instead of do it or I'll sell you at the auction and get a new horse. No, not like that, because that's
yeah.
not sustainable. You want to.
I can share a little story with you if you like to, and then I think we'll just ask you a bit more about your UK trip and how people here responded, because I'm sure some of this that we're talking to today must have come out in conversation in your trips, because it's not just a few. There are a lot of people that are going in this direction and thinking about this and trying to change for the better. There's a lot more people. So I went to see a client. This was quite a few years ago, and she's put something on my page, so it's not like I'm giving away confidence, and I won't mention names anyway. But I went to see a horse, and it was a lovely lady, and I wasn't sure why I was there, because when I went in to chat with the horse, what I was passing on to the carer, saying, you know, if you did this and you did that, then as long as you allowed the space for healing, as long as you allowed this time, then, you know, your dreams, what it is you're trying to achieve is achievable, but maybe not quite the way you was expecting, because you wanted to ride a horse and do competitions and things. And I was saying this to the lady, and it was almost like she was listening, but she was distracted. And it wasn't anything to do with what was around her. It was her thoughts, her own knowing why she was distracted. But I didn't know this at the time, so I was carrying on with the communication, and there was a feeling of, I don't know, this is not really landing. I'm not sure why. So I carried on passing on the messages, and then all of a sudden the horse stopped talking. And when I say talk, it's like telepathy. It's like intuition. It's just there. And that all he said was, there isn't a right or wrong answer. It doesn't matter, because I will think no less of this person, whatever her decision is. And as soon as he said that, I had this feel. I knew I didn't know exactly what, but I knew where I was going. So I passed this message on, and then that's when the information came back. And what it was is, a vet had been to see the horse, and this horse had been lame and in and out, in and out. And there was a path that could have gone in one direction, but it would have meant a lot of financial worry, which the lady could not realistically achieve at that moment. And the horse knew this. So the horse knew that she was not in a position to provide these certain things. Now, it doesn't mean to say that it would have totally worked, but the horse was saying, this is an option. When he realized that it's not in her power and she's made her decision, he was releasing her and saying, it doesn't matter what decision you make, it's fine. He was basically saying, if you want to let me go, that's fine too. And that was a big learning curve for me. So as soon as I said this, she gave me the information about the vet, and she said, but he, you know, he's given me this other option, but it is my choice. And what the horse was saying is, doesn't matter which one you choose. I know you're doing it because that's the only option you have at this time. Does that make sense, Thomas?
Yeah.
So in a ideal world, if there was finances, money, that wasn't an issue, then there's lots of other choices we could choose. Now, the horse was well aware that that wasn't an option at that moment, but there was no judgment. There was no change. There was just an understanding from this energy, this horse that I was connecting to. And that taught me a lot it taught me a lot.
Yeah. It's simple and profound, really, to just try to get into that space of non-judgment, of trying to explain away or rationalize or name your poison when it comes to what the humans will try to do or justify or explain. It's like, here's the horse with the facts. The horse is presented with the facts, and oh, that's the facts. The end. The end. There's no fear.
No.
Why would there be a reason to take that further if that's the facts?
And on a human element, if we had that choice, yeah.
Oh, what would you like to do now? And what does it look like to invite a horse to, or a herd of horses to show up a little bit differently? Is their environment so dead, dry bone, boring that they would have no reason to, want to show up any differently? Or could somebody please do something to provide a little bit of habitat enrichment here so that they might be invited to show some fire or some spirit or some expression, or bring a different smell or a different person, or just any change at all? Basically change the facts of the equation. What's the equation coming in? These facts that you talk about. It seems to me that is what we could present as a way to ask a question or extend the invitation, for example.
Yes. Maybe it's because we're scared of the answers. Maybe it's because we're scared of the answers.
Absolutely. And we think, oh, it's good enough, but is it? Is it really good enough? Or why? Yeah. So we have to ask the humans the question. And now we're right back to the humans. Like I say all the time, the horses can figure this out. They got this. You give them these 3 or 4 or 5 things that they need, they'll be more than fine. But what do you need to get out of your rut to provide for that? Why are we talking about this, for 8, 9, 10 years in a row, but you're not providing for that, or not doing the minimal amount of research to present the facts, the different scenarios, the enrichment to your horses to show you some cool stuff? Because they absolutely will show you the most cool stuff ever. They just need a very few things in place to do that. So study the nature, study your nature, study the nature of the horse, and do your best to provide for that. And your best right now is not your best next summer. It's not. It better not be. Don't become complacent. We call that some level of accountability, or a gentle push, or a nudge, or encouragement, or empowerment, whatever it takes. But I don't think it works very well to shame people into doing stuff that really short circuits the energy that we're talking about. So
No, it's so conversation like this are just to, if anybody's interested or something in them resonates, then that's what it's about. And
Yeah.
it's not um about following everything somebody does, but if they lead you into starting to listen to your own thoughts, your own little voice, and your own understanding and knowing feelings, because if you're doing something, if you're doing something just to going through the motions, you know what it feels like. But once you look at it and think, how would I feel if that was me? And sometimes people will say, yes, but I'm not a horse. You're not a horse. No, but how would it feel to you if you were in a box for like 9 hours and you got out to go for like an hour's walk and then you got back in again? Where would your mind be? What would you be doing? I mean, if I'm in the house for a whole day, I feel closed in and penned in. But again, it's not about saying to somebody, well, this is how I keep my horse. This is how it's got to be. It's about understanding if that's how we keep an animal, we have to understand that with that comes consequences, because it's not a natural place for them to thrive mentally. It's just a place to be. And some animals, as I said earlier, they're all different, but they don't say, this is what I want, total freedom, because they understand that there becomes a partnership from being with a human. They understand that they get looked after, they get fed, they get loved, as long as they're listened to and their concerns are felt and acknowledged, even if we can't change it straight away, that it's acknowledged. That's a big thing. So it's just a start. Treat an animal as you would a human, or treat an animal as you would like to be treated, with respect, with dignity, and compromise. It's not a this way or that way. It's about compromising. I feel we're going off a whole topic now, a different topic.
Mhm.
um,
Yeah, but it's
Tom,
the foundational. This is we're we're getting down to the most foundational stuff here. We really are,
yeah,
because um, and it's a good starting point when you encourage people to feel into what that might be like for themselves. That's a great place to start, but it's absolutely not where you're going to stay, from what I've seen, because the better observer that you are, and we call that empiricism, empirical science. The oldest form of science on the planet is power of observation. Once you just open that box and then you start to watch, and what happens is you start to get answers to questions that you didn't ask. Think about that. You go out there and at first you're like, what do you guys need? What am I didn't do this, I did that, I'm worried about this. And horses are like, yeah. And then you can evolve and move into a quieter space of just observe everything as a herd. Become a herd member. Don't go out there with your predatory eyes like you have been, or just your unconscious. You mentioned just kind of getting into a pattern of 3 times a day and this and that. Some people don't even realize that's what they're doing. They're unconsciously unconscious. So the first step is to just become that spectator of yourself and like, oh yeah, that's what I do. Okay. um, Now if you have some people on your side to say, yeah, go, that's it, then you wouldn't feel alone with that. But if you think you're weird, or you think you're crazy, then just call me and I'll show you crazy. you you won't feel alone. So uh, and that's the good stuff that we can get into to move this further and raise the level of consciousness around it, because I think, like you said before, we really are capable of a herd perspective, not as selfish, not as egoic, not as so involuted and hidden inside of us. And it takes time. takes time to bloom and come out and be allowed to be expressed, free expression. You know, look, watch the horses. I'll bet you know of horses that are kind of shut down and really not very expressive. And now you could probably say why. Do their feet hurt? Does their teeth not work? Is their metabolism messed up? Do they have no space to move? Do they have no friends to rub up against and have somebody scratch their withers with simultaneously? If not, then now you know. I mean, so let's scratch each other's withers here, right? That feels good.
That's one way of putting it, Thomas.
Well, whatever it takes. I mean, it's like,
Oh,
we have to
absolutely.
get into that space of working
Absolutely.
collectively.
Yeah,
So
definitely. But it's never, like you said earlier, it's never about sitting here and saying we are this and you should be doing this. What we're saying is there is another way, and animals are saying that all the time, and they are they're all individual, they're all different as humans, but they definitely, in my line of work, are looking for us to make changes, but within ourselves, to recognize. And so we had a little conversation before we started, and most people will totally agree that they will do more for their animals than they will themselves. They will notice things about the animals before they notice things within themselves. A lot of my clients, when animals are presenting something, there will be something similar within the client's physical too. So if you're familiar with the mirror syndrome, you can say that's a reflection back of myself. And it is to a certain degree, but it is on a physical, but it's more an energetic. So our energy changes our physical, and it causes problems within our bodies as it does with animals, with horses. And if we can see how our mindset or our emotions, our energy, if we are aware of it, can change how we physically feel, then we have an understanding how that affects a horse. And if you're riding a horse or with a horse, you can sense when their energy changes before it changes. Sometimes you can sense when they're picking up on yours before you've got to that point of escalated or higher energy. They can sense how you are before you even are near them. They just pick up on your wavelength. They know how your energy is. Is it sparky? Is it smooth? Is it calm? Is it soft? Is it firm? They just know that energy because that's what they're used to with horses. They know if a horse is approaching them that they need to back off. They just know that, or to see if they're okay. And we have that as humans because we are animals too. At the end of the day, we have that, but we ignore it because we don't. We have too many distractions, but it is there. And horses show us that if we connect to that and we start to understand what it is for ourselves, then we can start to see and acknowledge that in an animal before it gets to a point where it needs addressing. That's where we're headed. There'll be times when we won't need to ask for external help because it will be there. It won't be a thought. It will just be a knowing. As you walk out to a field, you can be poo picking. You can be just in your own little mind, in a little world. Your horse comes up to you. You can be scratching its butt, and then for some reason your hand stays there. I know my attention is saying, notice. It's not just my hand on the horse's butt for no reason. It's notice my energy. What's it doing? Where's it going? What's been asked of it? And you can either question it or you can just sit with it and just feel it. And then the horse will walk off and you carry on doing what you're doing. There's been an exchange there. There's been a communication. There's been a knowing, an understanding, not on verbal terms. It's just a knowing of an energetic being interacting with another one.
Yeah. Yeah, there's lots of examples like that we could invite people to try, just to go out there and be there,
Hmm.
and not we know that they're going to have all these questions going through their mind and all these wonderings and all of these queries, and that's just where you're at with that. That's just something to sit with, and the horses are, again, not going to be in high judgment around that, other than they might be like, you're pretty prickly, or you're pretty slippery, or you're pretty full of your agenda today, or they'll oftentimes let you know. The healthiest horses let you know the most, though. I will say that that's something that you can really count on, which is a lovely thing, because again, it's you when you rub up against and get in partnership with really, really healthy horses. Think of the horses that wouldn't necessarily depend on you for their very survival. You can find horses like this, and you can actually set up little habitats around your own places to keep the food available, the water available, the movement, and just observe and watch the health and vitality and fire come into that herd structure, and then be with that. Just if you have to go out there and read a book, do that if you need a distraction like that. But eventually, I think what you're saying is to go out there and just be a human being, not a human doing out there, would be quite revealing, wouldn't it?
Yes, yes. Just the same as if you go sit under a tree and just read a book, or you're just watching a butterfly, or watching a bird, or watching a cloud. Your senses start to expand naturally, and then you pick up the frequencies of what's going on. You just pick up the vibes, the feel, and that's you listening and connecting to yourself, your own feel, your own knowing. Yeah, yeah. It's, you can make it as difficult, or you can make it as simple as just, what's it like to just go out, have a breath of air, just go and just feel that peace. This is so lovely. And that's what it is. That's the nice sweet spot. Then the information, then the knowledge, then the knowing, then the understanding comes through. But you have to start somewhere, and it's just taking time out for yourself. It's being selfish. You have to be selfish. It's all right being of service and doing everything for everybody else, but what you're doing is you're avoiding your own needs, and horses want us to look at our needs, because when we follow our true needs, and by that I don't mean things as needs. I need a new pair of boots. It's not that. It's, what do I need for peace of mind? What do I need to quiet in my mind? What do I need? Because in that place, horses can communicate easier. They can't get through all that sparks and chatter. They need us to just be still enough for them to, and they have to know that we mean it too. It's like, yeah, we know you've said that before, because what you're doing is, I'm sitting here, I'm being quiet, I'm not getting anything. Because it's like, why aren't I getting anything? And it's like, but mine's not quiet. So
Yeah, there are some examples we might be able to come up with to give people a sense of what that is like, or and you can actually practice that, just being with a couple of other people or a circle of people, and just just listen. You can close your eyes or not, or you can sit or stand, but just be, and feel if it's uncomfortable, feel if your mind is saying, oh, I should say something right now, but it's more of a what emerges, because stuff will show up and emerge, and maybe you do want to say something. Maybe you do want to say, wow, look at that. Look at that tree. I never noticed that before, or just be in observance of how the horses will show up. This is, yeah, it is a whole nother subject about how horses are more than willing to interact to greater or lesser degrees with us when we're putting themselves within their sight. Again, we, by choice, put yourself within sight of that. Put yourself within sight of somebody who can see you. If you go out and you're an alcoholic and you hang out at the bar, that's going to have predictable results, probably. If you're wanting to do something different, then, look for a campfire, or look for a smelly old barnyard with some horses with flies around, and sit with that for a while, and see what emerges, see what putting yourself in sight of that might afford you, right? It's totally up to you. I mean, do you have enough evidence yet in your life that what you're doing is working or not working? Just asking, just a question for you to consider as consciously as you can. Is it working? Is it good enough? Are you good enough to want for that? How do you feel about upping the ante, about upping your game, next level? For you gamers out there who, what's the next level? You move up to a level of expertise around where you put yourself in sight of those that will, I would say, lovingly nibble on you a little bit. It's like when I put a sick horse with other horses to heal, what I'm looking for is those other horses to be just like, you better move a little bit further away from me, because you're the newcomer, and yeah, I'll let you drink eventually, but not right now. And this is my hay right here, so you're going to have to go eat over there, and I'm going to, that's not personal. That's like a nibble. That's like a little push. That's like a little shove. And then if you want to come back around and get together with me, head to tail, or, scratch my withers, that'd be all right. Until it's time to go get another drink, and I get to drink first, but not you, and that can change. So anyway, I like speaking metaphorically sometimes like that, so people can get what we're talking about with horse speak, with herd speak, and getting yourself in sight of all that. So it's quite the feeling, isn't it? It's the words don't do the kind of justice with it that I try, but it's really about a feel and a space, and putting yourself in that to feel that.
No, that was very excellent. That was very good. I understood that. If I didn't know horses, I could understand that. It was very visual. They're amazing. They're amazing creatures. So, Thomas, is there anything that you'd like to say to the viewers and the listeners? Is there anything that you'd like to share that they can? You shared quite a bit that they could do to experience this from your point of view?
Well, I did spend a lot of time and a lot of love and blood and sweat and tears putting together what I have put together in the book. So please, you can get that online, or you can get a copy sent to you anywhere in the world. And I think it's helpful to sit with some of the ideas that I put forward there. For here right now, I would encourage people to open up more space for their horses, and I would also like to extend the invitation for them to trust their horses a little bit more, to not self-destruct, not hurt themselves, not go out there and just do something untoward. Just trust them a little bit more to be a horse. And again, it's more about letting go of some of that micromanagement. With respect to UK, I know you have a lot more rain and mud and that sort of stuff over there than I have to deal with. And so I would encourage you to save up some money for some gravel and make a space for your horses to get high and dry, and maintain that place, because it really pays big dividends with their hoof health, and they like it. They like the feel of the gravel. It needs to be, 10 or 15 centimeters thick. We don't want pebbles on a hard surface, like marbles on a hard surface. That doesn't feel good. I'm talking about a depth of crushed rock or gravel to be on. That becomes mandatory. I realized I've been to Australia, UK, southeastern US, Oregon coast of the US. It's rainforest, and appreciate that horses would not choose to be there long term. They might migrate through there, but they don't choose to live there. It's an inappropriate environment to be in all the time. So what you have to do is help your environment out a little bit by getting some of that rock hauled in there. So you call up the landscape company, or you start hauling some stone and some gravel to your place and put it in an area where they have to move across it. So what else would I say? I could talk to you about any one of these subjects for days and days. So
Yeah, that's fine.
Nutrition wise, you can look on my Facebook page for some nutrition stuff and websites that I feel are really good to read articles, and also dealing with stress in our horses. I don't think it's strange at all that we're dealing with more and more stress-induced syndrome types of things in our horses, and we call it Cushing's syndrome in people, dogs, horses. It's a excess stress hormone in your life has predictable, negative, measurable consequences, and we're seeing it more and more. And stress can come because of all of those things. Don't have enough friends, don't have enough space, the diet is not right, my feet hurt, my teeth hurt. These are all sources of stress. And so you've got to take a look at reducing the stress coming in from all of these different angles in your environment, and the human environment too. Ooh, I like this part. What is the human environment like? I mean, how you show up around your horses, with more calm confidence, or are you just a big worrywart about everything? Just be honest about it. It's okay. I can tell when I meet you. I can tell when I meet your horses, and I get to meet you, what the human environment is like, and we talk about that, and it's really cool, and it's really important, and it can be fun. I mean, to begin with, it can be like, oh, you've got a spotlight on me. And it's like, yeah, but it's okay. And we're gonna have coffee later, or we're gonna have a beer, or we're gonna just hang out, or we're gonna see you again next time, or we're gonna follow the progress here. I tell people, I wish you'd send me some pictures once in a while, or I wish you'd send me a message about how it's going. And however many times I can say that and just portray that I really mean it. It's always, for a long time with some people, it's just like tumbleweeds, or just like, no word. There's no word. There's no, and I finally break down and get on the messenger or send a text like, how's it going? I can't stand it anymore, please. And sometimes they're like, oh, it's fine. I'm like, oh, good. Thanks for telling me. Other times it's like, oh, it's this. It's like, yeah, we need to get back on that, right? You need some support for that. Because let's face it, not every veterinarian talks like this, right? And a lot of veterinarians talk about stall rest. No, no, that's not a thing. Okay, you're not going to hear me talk about stall rest in horses. No, that's not. And we can go into that sometime if you want. We should probably get together, Ronnie, and talk about some more of these sorts of things, because we're just kind of brushing some tips of the icebergs here, and
Yes.
but dig down a little bit more. Why would I say that? How could I say that? It's like, well, let me tell you how I could say that. Right back to the nature of the horse again. You think you're going to force healing on that bowed tendon in that horse? Then why do they re-injure themselves when you go to do your controlled exercise 6 weeks from now, or even months? And now you have ulcers, and now you have a metabolic problem because you confined the horse. And now their feet are falling apart because of lack of stimulation and movement. And their minds are blown, and their condition off their body is gone because of lack of fitness and lack of movement. So back to trusting your horses more. Absolutely. I trust horses to be out in big spaces, and they don't self-destruct. They don't. They actually calm down. I've watched horses that have been put in stalls and they start to spin and cause more injury, develop ulcers, develop colic, develop more hoof problems, more musculoskeletal problems. So, I'm getting off on that tangent. See, there I
No,
go.
it's fine. You just reminded me. I'll say a quick story, and then I think we'll start to wrap it up, because we've been on about an hour and 20. So I had a client who was a friend, and she had a horse training facility, and one of her own horses had got a bad injury, and he was told to stay in the box, which he was okay, but he was getting to the point where he was also getting sedated. And she messaged me to say that he's really struggling, and he's being sedated, but there's something not right with him. And the vet says, you've got to sedate him, because if he moves, he's going to do more injury. And basically, when I tuned into his energy, he was fighting the sedation. He didn't want the sedation. He didn't want to feel out of control. And it was this sedation he was fighting, not being in the box at that moment. So I said, but obviously I can't tell you to do something if your vet's recommended sedation. It wasn't like a heavy sedation. It was just like a calmer, a sedative. Anyway, the next day she messaged me to say I'd forgotten to put the sedative out with the feed for my groom to feed the breakfast in the morning. She said, I totally forgot all about it. And he's so much calmer today. He's stood in the box and he's actually calmer. So he gave her the proof of what he was saying to me to pass on to her. And that was, I don't want to be sedated. I'm fighting this. And the fighting, because I'm sedated, is looking worse than what's actually going on. But that was just, that's just one. But she knew me and she trusted me. But I said to her at the end of the day, you've got to go with what you feel, because I can't tell you what to do. But this is what your horse is saying. And whether she meant to forget it or it was meant to be that way, but she forgot to leave the med, so it worked out fine. in the end.
Coincidence? I think not.
No, there's no such thing. There's no such thing. And yeah, we could go on. There's another whole subject coming out here, but that's for something else. So this podcast is just to give people a little insight onto where you are with your mind and your work, and how you'd like to progress and to help people if that's what they want to do, if they want to look a bit deeper into their animal care, their horse care. I will put link ups to your book and your website as I normally do anyway, and they can contact you directly with any questions. I think we've covered as much we could go into each subject a bit deeper, but what happens is we lose where we are. So like you said, I think that'll be for another conversation, or perhaps we should do a webinar where people that would like to know more can join us, and maybe do something like that.
Yeah, I think there'll be some comments or questions or inquiries that can come in. So if you're watching this and you have a certain subject or a certain tangent that you'd think would be really helpful, because I do ask people a lot of times, what do you need the most help with? What's the most confusing, or what's the biggest stumbling block, or and people are usually pleasantly surprised that I have some, and probably along with you, Ronnie, I think we could tag team it probably pretty effectively and work through it and find some better ways to move through it. And so,
and I have to say that just because I do this does not mean that I get it right or it's perfect with my own animals. Right. I am continually learning, and it changes, depends on what's going on with the horses and what's going on with me. When I get clarity one moment, it can change. What can be right one moment can be not quite right the next moment. So it's forever evolving. It's never you've got it. There's always new understanding, and sometimes the more you learn, the less you know. It becomes like, oh my God, it's sometimes ignorant is bliss, but it isn't really. But sometimes it's that feeling.
Yeah, that's an okay space to be around and move through as well. And it actually helps you absorb even more at that point. And so
absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Thomas, for coming back and visiting us. And it was lovely that we could actually talk and listen to you, because that's what people come on for, to listen to my guests. Yeah. Would you like to say anything before you go?
Well, just ripple on. I'm not going to pretend to know how big or how small any sort of ripple might travel, or where it touches you, or who you might talk to next. But I trust that it's going to go, and we're going to just ring that bell when we can, and think about that, how what we do really matters, and that you matter. Absolutely. Guaranteed. I will reflect that right to you in this moment, that you matter. If you're listening to this and you feel that there's something that you can move forward from here with, please do. And know that if you were to send me a message or send me a picture about something, that you're very likely to hear back from me, and whether you do or not, okay, just to let you know that I'm real, and hope to see you again on Ronnie's special platform here.
Thank you, Thomas. I'm just going to pop you out, and then I'll say bye. If you don't mind hanging on for a little while, then we can have a quick chat. Okay. Yep. See you soon. What a lovely guy. There was lots of subject in there, and there was lots of subject that we was trying to get into. Not trying, it was just sort of flowing, but it was just scratching the surface. So as Thomas said, if anybody's interested, I would like to ask him some more questions, or myself, please feel free to contact either of us. And I think it would be really good to do a webinar so people can actually physically join in and speak to him face to face. Thank you very much for joining us. I do hope this has got to where it should be going. I'm sure it will, and it will be made into an audio. So for the people that have missed this during the live, don't worry. You can listen to this in the comfort of your own home or your car, whatever it is you're doing. Thank you for joining. Have a lovely evening. Take care, and I shall see you soon.